Okay, call to order, please. It's 6:04, and let's, okay, call the roll, please.
Coert. Esri. Here. Harper. Here. Hartke. Here. James. Here. Jay. Here. Kibler. Here. Kurtz. Here. Langenheim. Here. Maxwell. Here. McGuire. Here. Michaels. Here. Mitchell. Here. Petrie. Here. Quisenberry. Here. Richards. Rosales.
Here.
Schrader. Here. Schwartz. Here. Alex. Berkson. Here. Carter. Here. Richards. Here.
Well, that's great. We have an actual 100%. That's fantastic. All right, let's move to approval of the minutes. Committee of the Whole minutes on February 12th. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Kibler, whoa, I got hands everywhere. I got Mr. Mitchell as a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, I need a motion for approval of the agenda. So moved by Mr. Carter, second by Ms. Coward. Discussion, Ms. Petrie.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like to remove from the agenda item 7C, 1, A, and B.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
The closed session, which is the last item on the agenda, should also be removed, if that's okay.
Oh, thank you. All right. All right. We will also remove the closed session under other business 10. Okay. Any other discussion? Any other changes or amendments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Let's move on. I don't have any public participation. Is there anyone out there who wants to speak to us tonight? Oh, how refreshing. That's okay, great. I will close public participation. We may get out of here on time tonight. I have communications from the board. Okay, we have 3. Let me grab John first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to report on a former colleague of ours, Mr. O'Connor. He's currently in the hospital. He had serious cancer surgery yesterday. He had part of his stomach removed. Prognosis so far has been he's recovering nicely. He's on a ventilator, but he doesn't seem to have any more cancer. So far, so good. So I just want to report to the board that Mr. O'Connor is doing good as can be.
Just he's in Provena.
He's in Provena. Yeah. Thanks.
And I've already asked Deb to send flowers and a card from us for his quick recovery. All right, my second hand up was Ms. Petrie, and then I think Mr. Quisenberry. Jim, did you have something also? Okay, Patsy first.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to let my fellow board members and the general public know that District 6 is having the 4th town meeting for that district. So Mr. Harkey and I will be at the Champaign Public Library on the 24th of March from 1 to 2 to talk to people. And the reason for choosing that date is twofold. On the 26th of March is the energy efficiency study session for the county board, so that gives anybody in the county a chance to talk to us on that issue. And then I thought, but there may be a correction that Mr. Richards knows about, that there is supposed to be a public meeting in relationship to the jail issue, and originally that was scheduled on the 28th of March at the Champaign Public Library. If that date gets changed, that's fine, but it still gives a chance for our constituents and people in the county to talk to Josh and I on that issue. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. James?
Yes, I wanted to let the board know I received word from Gordy Holden, who's sitting right over here, that the polling places for City of Champaign 18 and City of Champaign 34. The normal hosts for those locations have notified Gordy that they will not be able to host voting. That would be at the Farm Bureau and at the Parkland College Tony Knoll Ag Center. And because of that, Gordy has worked with Parkland and secured the Parkland College Park Hill Applied Technology Center as an alternative place for those two precincts to vote at, right adjacent to the, actually to the Tony Knoll Ag Center, so pretty close by. And I said I would announce this tonight because we're not going to have the normal time that we would have to go through and make this kind of change with the election not being very far away. But I would be happy to make a motion to suspend the rules if anybody wants to ask Gordy questions about this change.
All right, Patsy, you want to suspend the rules?
Yes, I move to suspend the rules.
I will second that.
All in favor of suspending the rules?
Sir, for what purpose?
Purpose of questioning Mr. Hilton on the polling places for this next election.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Quisenberry. No, Mr. Alex, wasn't it?
Mr. Alex.
Yes, thank you. How can I, never mind. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Pat?
Mr. Holton, I know you have checked everything out, so this is just an exclamation for me and the general public who are watching. Since the time is limited for the process to bring this forward to the county board, how does this get handled otherwise?
There is a provision in statute where the election authority can make emergency changes to polling places for fires, for last-minute unavailability, things like that. Statute does require us to send a written notification by first-class mail to every registered voter in those affected precincts. We will do that. Luckily, I think this change has happened early enough that we can still get the notice, the formal notice of election that's going to get printed in the paper, updated. We've updated everything on the website. We'll use the media and social media and everything online as well to publicize this change as much as possible. Luckily, these two precincts happen to be right next to each other, and Parkland had another facility available right next door to the original one. So,
Thank you very much. I knew you had it in.
Are there any rules about how much notice places have to give you?
no. The polling place statutes are sort of written as if we do the polling places a favor by allowing them to serve as polling places. And in reality, they do us a favor by serving as polling places. So honestly, we're just grateful that those folks who do this, and when they have changes, these things happen. They always do. I'm just grateful that it didn't happen for November. It would have been a lot more chaotic for November.
Mr. Ralph and then Josh.
Do we pay for that?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Use the microphone, please, Ralph. It's
The
on.
question was, do we pay for the polling place
Yeah.
locations?
Okay.
And we pay by statute the princely sum of $25 per election.
Outrageous.
Boy. Josh?
Just a quick, I know you said things going on, I missed. Will there be signage up like at the Farm Bureau to let voters know to go to, where to go? Okay. Thank
Yeah, we'll actually put signs up at the Parkland College Theater lobby, which was the old polling place for CC 34, at the Tony Knoll Ag Building, at the Farm Bureau. And this is a one-time change. This will just be for April. So for the 2014 elections, the polling places will revert to their normal locations, which is why a formal county board vote is unnecessary on this, because you're not actually changing the polling place. This is just an emergency thing.
Mr. Carter, you had a question?
Yeah. It seems like every year we kind of have a little problem there with the voting situation. Why?
With which location?
Well, we not ready. It come up to an emergency thing. And I'm wondering why I can't, since we know that the election coming after you have the other one, so why ain't we ready?
This is the first time this has happened to me, I think, in the 2.5 years I've been county clerk.
Well, I thought the campus had a problem there.
The campus wasn't a problem. The campus was a decision to consolidate a number of polling places into one location for more convenience for the voters. because of the anticipated low turnout of the April election. That wasn't an emergency situation. It wasn't a scheduling conflict. That was simply a proactive move on our part to try and better serve 500 voters at one location instead of having 15 or 20 voters go to 10 separate locations.
Well, my point is, I think more the timetable that we getting into on this.
Well, I would love to have made this change 90 days ago, but the polling places unfortunately notified me on Saturday night and Monday morning.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Okay, are there any other questions for, no, you're okay, you have communication also? Okay. Gordy, thank you very much, appreciate it. All right, let's go back to communications. Jim was first, and then, Mike. Go ahead.
Just very quickly, the organization where I suppose we're all a part of, the United Counties Council of Leadership, the United Council is having a leadership council, academy, sorry, that I will be attending, and of course, it's open to others too if they'd like to attend.
I will be attending as well. Maybe we can go together to Springfield. We'll see if we can, you don't know about that? All right. Okay, Michael.
To follow up what Patsy was saying earlier, just so there's no confusion, the next Justice Task Force and the hearing have been switched. So the hearing with Dr. Kalmanov, the community hearing, is now going to be Monday, April 1st at 6 p.m. at the Urbana Civic Center, not the 28th. The 28th will now be the meeting for the task force at 6 p.m. here, I assume, right? Here.
Okay, any other communication? All right, good, let's move on. Mr. Quisenberry, would you please take a stand? I'm not sure if I'll take the stand.
Where's the gavel?
In my office? I'm sorry, I'll bring it out for you next time. I know.
All right.
Power in your hands.
I hope you all were able to read through the notes I sent out a day or so ago regarding policy. The first thing on our agenda tonight is the Sheriff's Merit Commission. You have in your packet information on the resignation of Kelly Griffith, which is provided for your information. And then we have a nomination for the, to fill that spot, which I believe is provided by the sheriff to the chair and
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
The appointment goes to Sammy Anderson.
Do we have a second? Mr. Esri. Okay, is there any discussion with regard to this appointment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, that's unanimous. Next on our agenda is the report from the county clerk. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept and place on file.
Second.
Mr. James, seconded by Mr. Kurtz. Any questions or discussion since we have the clerk here? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay, next item is item D, since we removed item C. You have, let's go with D1. You have recommended amendments to the bylaws of the Board of Directors, and I will entertain a motion for that change. Moved by Astrid. Second by Mr. Kibler. And before I open up discussion, I will remind the board that when we had our nursing home study session, staff was charged with working on bringing the three documents together: the nursing home Board of Directors bylaws, the nursing home Board of Directors policy book, and the MPA contract. It's easier to change both the bylaws and the policy book than changing the contract while it's in force. So these changes about the bylaws came from that goal of getting those documents all in sync. That's what this item is about. So any discussion or questions? Josh.
Okay, as a member of the board, I just want to inform everybody that the Nursing Home Board of Directors unanimously supported all of these changes. These are all very much kind of clerical, cleaning up definitions, changing administrator to manager kind of things to make things jive. I think that these are, if we move on these, I would like to move them all separately together. Now, some people have expressed an idea to re-examine the nursing home bylaws. I am very interested in that and would be more than willing to entertain that idea down the road, but passing these all together tonight would be an efficient way to get this step taken first. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Diane.
As I was reading the bylaws and the changes, there were a couple things that I thought kind of minor, actually, that maybe needed to change or updated or some explanation. Is that something that maybe you'll look at later? We approve this now and then make those minor adjustments later?
Yeah,
Or do you
yes,
want to?
can I suggest if you have what I'll call substantive changes to the bylaws, that you work with Mr. Hartke and Mr. Maxwell for a further revision that would address those kinds of concerns.
Okay, so it's not just a done deal, I can
Nope.
come back? Okay, thank you.
It's never a done deal.
Thanks.
Mr. McGuire.
Just kind of along the same lines, sometimes I see in these types of documents, definition of terms, like what manager actually means, things like that, and I think that would be helpful for the document.
Okay, Ms. Petrie.
Well, I will go along with approval of this with the caveat that Mr. Quisenberry, as policy chair, along with the two board members who are the liaison to the board of directors, begin the process of seriously reviewing these bylaws, because there's conflicts, there's contradictions, there's not consistency, and there are several serious places here that make us the piggy bank of last resource, with absolutely no say by the county board on expenditures, and that opens us up to some major liabilities that I would like to see cleaned up. Thank you very much.
All right, other comments, questions? Okay, Josh and Gary, are you willing to receive comments for further future? Can you be point for that? Okay, thank you. Okay, so seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Passed unanimously. Okay, moving on to the changes to the policy book. I'd like to entertain a motion. So moved. Moved by Mr. James, second by Astrid. All right, any discussion on this item? Mr. Richards.
I did have one question on these. In general, they seem like they're pretty judicious changes, but I see we're marking the Justice and Social Services Committee off. Is this just because this hasn't been changed since its parent committee became Finance?
It hasn't been changed, right?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, Deb.
I just want to point out that there's a document at your seats tonight. The Nursing Home Board last night identified 3 additional minor changes, and they are on the document that was provided to you, that would request that you include those in the motion that you're about to vote on.
Ms. Petrie?
This may need to be taken care of now rather than later. I notice in the bylaws, the board is referred to as the Board of Directors, but when we get to the policy document, it's the Board of Governors. This has got to be put in sync. It opens up. So, that's a simple change, and if it is all right with Chair Quisenberry for that minor adjustment to be taken care of, I would amend the motion.
Okay, I would like to entertain a motion, an amendment that would address both the 2 or 3 changes that Deb has called to your attention on the desk, and if Patsy, you could restate that plus the specific change you want to make.
Okay, I'm happy to.
Okay.
I move.
Are you willing to move the 3 changes
Yes,
that
I
are
will.
on the desk? Okay.
I move to amend the original motion to include the three changes presented to us this evening that were passed by the Champaign County Nursing Home Board of Directors at their meeting last evening. In addition, to get the language in parallel, that the language referring to the board as Board of Directors in both the bylaws and in the policy document.
All right, we can only amend the policy book at this point.
That works.
Okay, okay. Mr. Kibler has seconded that amendment. Any discussion on that, on this amendment? Mr. Maxwell?
I would have to go back through and reread this, but I believe we do, somewhere back in the body of these documents, indicate that the Board of Directors is also the governing body. Is it in the Board of Directors?
Okay.
Okay, I think I am confused, and I want to make sure I have this right. So in the policy book, on page 330 of your agenda packet, the role of the Board of Directors and the board's primary functions clearly states the Board of Directors hereinafter referred to as the governing body for this document. So then thereafter, in the policy book, the Board of Directors is referred to as the governing body. These are two separate documents. So I'm not exactly sure. It's defined in the very beginning of the policy book.
I will adjust my amendment to remove that part of the correction.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, one vote against the amendment, but it passes. So now we're back to the discussion on the motion as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, that will not be on consent agenda. Okay, moving along. Next item, I would entertain a motion to accept the administrator's report and place it on file.
So moved.
Ms. Michaels, seconded by Geraldo Rosales. Okay, any discussions or questions for Deb regarding this report? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay. Other business, okay. I don't believe we have any other business for policy tonight. And then for the chair's report, I wanted to point out, since we've had a couple of discussions before us from constituents regarding drones and the use of drones, that the state Senate is taking up a bill, Senate Bill 1587, that has been proposed by Daniel Biss, I guess, is a Democrat from Skokie, but he has bipartisan support for this bill that would restrict the use of drones for law enforcement to a similar situation that like wiretapping, other things are restricted. You would have to get a judge's approval to do such things. I think we'll watch this legislation move forward, and at such point where it becomes appropriate, I will try to get a resolution in support of it put together to address some of our citizens concerned with regard to that. I've also received concerns regarding private or personal use of these kinds of remote control airplanes, basically, or helicopters with cameras to surveil people, one private citizen to another. I'm afraid that the county does not have jurisdiction to legislate control of that. So, and I also am not clear that the existing privacy protections in the state don't already apply to this. However, the language may be a little out of date or hard to translate to those kinds of situations. So again, I think we're going to have to wait on either state clarification or refer people to the existing protections for privacy that exist on the books to handle those situations. In any case, I don't believe that we would have no jurisdiction to legislate control of those, of flying of those kinds of remote control vehicles with cameras, and no way to enforce it at this point. So we're gonna have to depend on the state for that as well. So the other thing I have on here is, yes. Who has a question? Ms. Petrie.
What you just stated, was that in consultation with our state's attorney's office?
I have not at this point asked the state's attorney to review current privacy law and see if that covers drones. No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Carter.
Yeah, I have a problem with that too. I think that should be questioned. Why is it they never give you assistance until it's something that, you know, and I think we're being used. This body should be able to determine it's our own operation. I do. I have a question about that. I'd like somebody from Springfield to come and tell us something about that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carter. Any other responses to my report, which I don't normally entertain, but I'm glad to? Semi-annual review of closed session minutes, do we have that for policy? Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
The state's attorney's recommendation is that all of the minutes of the policy committee and policy committee of the whole be maintained as closed pursuant to the guidelines established by your resolution on this issue.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion regarding that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Or say nay? You're opposed? Okay. All right, thank you. And then last, designation of items to be placed on consent. I have item from 1, I have item 2, and I have D1, and that's it. All right, that's all from policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quisenberry. All right, up next, Mr. Alex.
Thank you. Our first item on the agenda under finance is the treasurer. As usual, his monthly reports are available on the website. Mr. Welch is here if anyone has any questions or if he has any comments.
Just ask that it be accepted and placed on file.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Quisenberry, second by Mr. Kibler. Mr. Welch, you have anything to share with us?
No, nothing.
Any questions? Ms.
Nice
Petrie?
to be here with you, though.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate that.
I do have a question.
Sure.
It's leading up to another agenda item. Today I listened to the financial reports across the country and especially for the state of Illinois, and we are still at the bottom of the list on improvement in economics. It's happening around the country, but we seem not to be catching on in this state. Have you thought about that, and have you begun doing any projections of what you are anticipating might be coming into the coffers as the bills go out and things like that?
Sure. I mean, one of the most important things that I do every single day and for several hours during the day is looking at my cash flow report, and that's for General Corp. And it's a detail that I post every check and I post every deposit. And I have projections for now 4 years of revenue and expenditures. And so I look at that on a daily basis and try to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. I try to anticipate when we're going to need that loan from public safety to do what we need to do for General Corp. And that'll be soon. It'll be sometime this month, I would think. I think we have authority for $1.5 million in loans, and I think we'll probably only use $1 million of it. But we wouldn't use more than $1 million unless we needed it. So yeah, it's something I look at all the time. The state, of course, is behind on income tax to the tune of 4 or 5 months, roughly $1 million. That'd surely put us in a little bit better position as well. But we're also fortunate that once again this year our tax bills will go out on time, and that's huge, not for just us as a taxing body, which is obviously important, but we'll start getting money in May, and with the bills going out at the 1st of May, so our first distribution would be at the end of May and every month thereafter for 6 months. But it also gives the taxpayer 3 months in between installments. So we all appreciate that. We're one of just a handful of counties out of 102 that get our tax bills out on time. And that's because we work collaboratively in the tax cycle. We have the township assessors, the supervisor assessments office, the county clerk's office, treasurer's office, IT. We all work together.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Michaels.
Thank you. Just a quick question. You know, a lot of people have protested their taxes. There's been some decrease in values in properties, I know in our area here. Has that had a big effect, or is it just a minor that you'll be able to make adjustments for? I mean, I don't see huge dollars, but it doesn't make a difference in the overall plan.
Well, several years ago, they changed the way paid under protest is, if that's what you're talking about. There's 2 different things. You can, of course, appeal your assessment, which may be what you're more talking about, and people paying under protest because they don't like something about their tax bill. And on the paid under protest part of it, the money's not withheld from the taxing districts. We collect it and we distribute it like we would normally. It's not withheld from the district at all. The number of appeals on their assessment, of course, is high, but nothing that's really made any great deal of effect.
Thank you. Ms. Petrie?
Yes, a follow-up question, if I might. Do you anticipate the property tax collection for the county to be approximately the same as last year?
Well, I have some perspective on this because
okay, perspective.
When I started in 1973, we were collecting $30 million. Last year we collected $282 million. A little bit of a difference. So I can only think of maybe 1 year in those last 40 that the tax collections actually went down slightly. I think you'll always see a 3 or 4% increase in the total that we're going to collect. So my guess is we'll be around 290 million. That's just a guess, but.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, all those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report and placing it on file, please say aye. 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 Any opposed, say no. Thank you. We'll do that. The next item is 2 resolutions authorizing the disbursement of funds on defaulted contracts for mobile home tax sales. I would ask for an omnibus motion to send both these to the full board with a recommendation for approval. Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Quisenberry with the second. You want to mention these?
These are 2 that I've never seen before, so to have 2 in 1 month is kind of unusual. What basically has happened here is that the taxes were not paid on the mobile homes at the original time, and then they went to a tax sale. No one purchased the taxes. After the redemption period, the trustee or the county itself takes an interest in the property, has a sealed bid auction in which these 2 properties went to a sealed bid auction, 2 people, 2 individuals separately, bid around $1,100 for the right to take the title of those properties, but then they also signed a contract stating that they wanted to pay on a monthly basis. They failed to continue to pay after about $600. And so they had signed a contract, a sales contract, and then they were in default of after they had quit paying. And so they were sent a certified letter telling them that they needed to get this straightened out or that they were going to lose the funds they put forward. They ignored those, and that's where we're at tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I guess I have one. What happens to the taxes on those properties? Do they go back to auction?
Well, the $600 is basically what each of them paid. So about $300 goes to the agent or the trustee for the job that they've done so far. And about $300 goes towards the taxes themselves and is distributed to the taxing districts.
But do the properties then go back to tax sale?
Well, it's already, it doesn't go actually.
The
to
county's
tax-
already, the trustee
It'll
has
go to
already.
the next year when we go again. and do
Okay,
the-
yeah,
do
that's
the
what I'm,
sealed
that's,
bid
that's what
auction
I'm
again.
asking.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. And thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda are the monthly reports from the auditor. Mr. Farney is here to speak to us. While he's on his way up here, I would ask for a motion to accept these and place on file. I think I got Mr. J and Mr. Schroeder. No. Mr. Langenheim, sorry. Do you have anything to tell us?
I have nothing exciting to report on it. I did pass out the purchases not filing policy for you all to review before your meeting later this month, and if you have any questions between now and then, I'd be glad to try to answer them for you. Most of those are still cross fiscal years. Nursing homes, as you can see, is getting caught up on things, so commend them for putting that effort in.
Thank you. Are any questions on the purchases not filing policy or anything else? Ms. Petrie? Yeah.
Okay. Now that you've had a chance to be working with a nursing home since you took office, are you ferreting out any concerns that you feel it's important to share with us?
Oh, we've had several meetings with the nursing home, and we're getting to the point where they see what we want to see. Shall we say that? And we're not there to micromanage the nursing home. We're there to encourage them to comply with county policies.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. I'll have some more comments to that effect during my chair's report. If there are no further I guess I'll point out too, as the treasurer's report, or excuse me, the auditor's report shows, we're at about 22% on expenditures for the year, which is about what we'd expect to be 2 full months and 1 short month into the fiscal year. So I think we're on track with the budget. If there are no further comments or questions, all those in favor of accepting the auditor's report and placing it on file, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thanks, John. Next item is the nursing home monthly report. I would entertain a motion to accept this and place it on file. I see a motion by Mr. Carter, second by Mr. Kurtz. I do apologize to Ms. Schwartz. She asked at the last committee of the whole meeting if we could get more of the narrative from the nursing home board of directors packet included in the finance packet along with the numbers, and I didn't get around to asking Mr. Geeman to do that until it was too late, so we'll do that next month. I did, the information is available on the website for the nursing home board of directors. Any comments or questions? Mr. Hartkeys first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize perhaps finance is not the best place to address this, but this is nursing home, and because everybody was lucky enough to see my big mug on TV this evening, if you watched the 5 o'clock news, you know that there was a story this morning, last night, from the News Gazette regarding deaths at the nursing home. First off, I think the character of the conversation that was had by the board of directors last night was somewhat misrepresented in that article. Every member of the board of directors had questions regarding these deaths when they were brought to us as a bit of data that has just recently showed up. The director, Scott, he was quite clear that he had just gotten this data that day and would be working with the administrator in the morning to clear it up as to what was going on. He in fact called me today and he broke down the numbers, and I want to deliver you the correct and accurate numbers on what was going on. 46 patients died in 3 months. Those months are, of course, December, January, and February, which, as everyone knows, watching anything or having family at home, it's been flu season, for one reason. 27 of those people were hospice members. Now, if everybody understands, hospice are people that are in end-of-life care. One other person was palliative care, which is a form of that. These people we've had very high hospice numbers for the last several months, and now some people have started to fade on us. That's not due to negligence. We looked further. There were 20 of these 40-some people were over the age of 90, and a high percentage of those were the so-called routine deaths, which were not people that were in hospice. So these were the non-hospice deaths had a high percentage of people past the age of 90. Again, we're comparing 3 winter months of high flu rates to a yearly average of 5.3. Now, everybody knows that when the average is 5.3, not 5.3 people do not die every single month. It's an average, and these are the months when our numbers go high. The spring and summer are the months when they're going to be low. Now, that all being said, the board of directors is absolutely committed to making sure that that is the situation. Believe me, the administration has been on the phone with us several times today. I would encourage you to please let your constituents know that this is not an emergency situation, that this was perhaps a kerfuffle raised over a statistical, not even necessarily anomaly, because you also have to consider the fact that since the nursing home numbers have been up so high lately, the overall head count, we're going to have higher death by raw numbers. That's going to happen. So again, Gary and I were through this with every other member of the board last night. We were satisfied with the answers given to us last night. We are not letting this go. We will make sure that this is the issue, but we don't want to, I think that this was the news media somewhat jumped the gun on this. These are aberrations due to winter and other issues, and we will be chasing it down. And please, ask any questions if you have them.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Hartke or Mr. Maxwell? Ms. Petrie.
Yes, I have a number of questions/comments. I could not attend the board meeting last night. I had another meeting conflict, but I had read the packet. And the packet did have included in it the demise, or increased demise of patients at the nursing home. It's hard to draw any conclusions yet. My key concern is because there was a bump in the data that when the people we hire and given over authority to run the nursing home did not come to the meeting somewhat prepared to say that we're looking into this, we need to look at the data, we need some more statistics on this. This certainly would have prevented the wonderful headline that was in the News Gazette today. And I do hope from now on out, as part of the data that we get from the nursing home, is data on the loss of residents and some explanation why this is occurring. So we can ourselves look at a pattern across time, and maybe by doing that we won't have a, as my colleague says, kerfuffle.
I've been waiting to use that word.
I know, so I'm reinforcing it, so that we don't have this explosion of concern, because it certainly is not the best PR for our county nursing home. I do have a second comment that I was quite interested in. The fact that the person hired to do the respiratory therapy, the way it was worded in the packet, is walked away from the position after 2 weeks. Now, again, this could be something that she had 3 applications out. The nursing home offered her a job in this desperate time. She said yes, and a better one came along and with much better pay and took it. But I do think that it is important to have a small bit of explanation so that all that is transparent and understandable for people, because there are positions at the nursing home that they are having trouble filling, and I don't want to take away impression that the work environment is not of the best possible that we can see happening at the nursing home when there might be other driving factors surrounding these circumstances. Thank you.
Mr. Hartke, would you like to address that very briefly? It's a bit getting beyond the bounds of finance, so I don't want to belabor it.
Yeah, thank you. Real quick, 2 points on the quality of life stuff. Those are things that I've been wanting to address regardless, and Mr. Kibble and I already tonight started a conversation on it, beginning with dietary, which is, of course, of interest to me, which we're going to start working on. And also I think that looking at the bylaws may be a way to further this along. As far as the respiratory therapist quitting, as far as we can know, that's just somebody quitting their job that day. You're going to have that. My report from the union is that they're extremely happy right now, that morale at the nursing home among employees is up beyond where it's been in a long time. Now, again, maybe that means we need to crack down on a few things. I hate, but I think it's a good thing. I think that leads to better care. But I'm always open to ideas on how we can make the nursing home work better, believe me.
Mr. Kibler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm specifically looking at page 55 under nursing services, talking about overtime. We're about 50,000 in the hole already year to date on overtime. And that's, I would like a little bit more color as to the reasoning for the overtime. I assume it's a staffing shortfall, but nonetheless, the number on the far right is actually incorrect. It's actually 51,189, not 31,000. So we should probably get that corrected for this report.
Thanks for pointing that out, Mr. Harkey. You probably don't have an immediate comment on that. Can we pass that along? Ms.
I would
Busey has
point
a
out that
comment.
overtime is up because we have a number of holidays in the first 2 months of the year, which creates overtime at the nursing home.
I guess I'd also mention that overtime is a trade-off versus contract nursing. So to some extent, the nursing home has to decide whether to fill things like holidays with overtime or contract nursing, but I appreciate you bringing that up. Mr.
Very
Kibler,
well
do you want to follow up?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kibler, did you have additional comment?
I was going to acknowledge that very well may be true. I would just like an affirmation from management, if you
We'll
could.
pass that request along. Mr. Maxwell.
There are some issues that concern me, but I felt better left to working within the home. I did not want to say too much specifically about any specific employee and why or why not they left, but I do hope to investigate further and see if there's a trend. But we have to be very careful when we deal with personnel issues that we don't jeopardize privacy and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Mr. Kurtz, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say, for those of us who were here 4 years ago, if we remember the grievances that came from the nursing home years ago, how they have dissipated and almost disappeared now. And I owe that to the MPA and how they've been able to deal with not only our union representatives over there, but with all our nursing staff. I think it's become obvious to me that the staff is working very, very well with our management team, and that we don't see anywhere near. In fact, I don't remember the last time we've had a grievance from the nursing home. I think it's been exceptional in that regard. So I think the morale is very, very high, and that also relates to how the care of our residents there. If you have happy staff working well, you have a much better source of service to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. Are there any, Mr. Maxwell?
Some of us have been raising the issue of some of the budget overruns and some of the commodity line items. And I think that the management has also begun to look at those issues and has decided to implement a inventory and purchasing policy that should alleviate some of those overruns.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Mr. Kibler.
Sorry, I guess when you see one, you see many. The same thing can also be said for professional services under the same budgetary area. Again, we're 70,000 in the hole with that one, but we're not stating that in the variance. So I just want to make sure that everybody's getting a clearer picture, so we need to double check these sheets.
Thank you. If you can, if you find additional ones, please send those to me, and I'll get them to Mr. Guima. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is to accept the nursing home report and place it on file. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. Moving on to budget amendments and transfers. We have two budget amendments, both related to the FOP Corrections Bargaining Unit contract. Excuse me, what did I say? Apparently I was wrong. We have one transfer and one amendment. Budget transfer 13-1 is for the amount of $33,427. This moves money from the sheriff's contingency line into his full-time employee line and covers the raises included in the contract. This is a transfer because the sheriff anticipated these when we did the fiscal year 2013 budget. I may have a motion to forward this to the full board with a recommendation for approval. Mr. Kibler, and seconded by Mr. Harper. Are there comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. We now have Budget Amendment 13-16, again related to this contract. This is to cover the increased appropriations of $141,000 for the ratification bonus. Again, we've discussed this frequently in the past, including when we ratified the contract. We believe that this is a good investment in terms of saving the county significant money down the road. It is $141,000 instead of $144,000 because since the contract was ratified, one employee has left and will not be receiving the bonus. I would entertain a motion to forward this to the full board with a recommendation for approval. Moved by Mr. Harper. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Berkson. Is there further discussion or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That will be approved. Our next item is from Probation and Court Services. This is a request from Joe Gordon to apply for a Department of Justice grant, which is essentially a research grant at this point to identify ways to provide additional mental health services. Mr. Gordon is here, and I will point out he provided a copy of the actual application, which is on our table tonight. So, Mr. Gordon, the floor is yours.
We have been approached by a local entity to...
I'm sorry, sir. I need a motion on that. May I have a motion to move by Mr. Carter in a second? Mr. James. Okay, thank you.
We've been approached by a local entity to apply for this grant. It's a U.S. Department of Justice grant. It has to come through the county or government entity. As you can see from the information provided, what we would plan, this would be a planning grant to review what is presently going on in the county with two specific groups of individuals that we're working with. That would be those individuals in drug court and those individuals in our relatively new mental health court. It would not be uncommon for an individual to be in drug court that might have mental health issues or mental health issues and drug issues. So they've requested that we review this or approach the board about pursuing this, and I do think it's a really good idea. I should also mention, too, for some of you that have had an opportunity to attend some of our drug court graduations, that it is a very highly successful program, and I think the intent here would probably be to look at this and to see if we are, in fact, doing what we need to be doing to make a successful program.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. Gordon? Mr. Kibler.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Just reading through the documentation, it says 20% of the amount must be supplied in match funds. So is the idea that if awarded, we would be needing to put in $10,000 extra from what was budgeted, or what's that line indicate?
No, typically with these grants, is there is a match. You'll see from the documentation that that 20% match would be provided by community elements.
Okay. Mr. Richards.
In this application, these programs are described as innovative. I wonder if you could fill us in on what makes them innovative.
Well, as with a lot of the programs in the criminal justice arena, they're all evidence-based programs. In other words, they're trying to focus on programs that have some data that indicate that the programs work. So by looking at drug court and mental health court, which have proven to work, they would like to probably explore this further to see if an expansion might be something that would be considered in the future.
Mr. Carter.
Yeah. Well, hello, Mr. Gordon. I have seen you.
It has been a while.
But anyway, I'd love this, and I hope we can get it. We need anything we can get for mental. We are in a bad situation when it comes to mental. We don't even have any facility for mental people to go to anymore.
Well, that's
and
true.
The finance, you can't find it. And we have people out there in bad need of this care. And we need to do something about it.
Well, things have changed over the years, and I've been here for quite a while, and I do recall when they did have residential facilities, a lot of residential facilities for adults and juveniles. But I think the intent is to try to work with individuals in the community as much as possible, and to use these particular types of programs that have some data to indicate that they do work, to see if there can be some impact on these particular individuals.
Well, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Are there any other questions for Mr. Gordon or any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of forwarding this to the full board with the recommendation for approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And we'll do that. Thank you, sir. Our next items are for the Regional Planning Commission. The first is approval of an agreement regarding provision of recycling and refurbishing services with the contractor, and the second is a lease agreement with the News Gazette for the use of their facility. These are both for the countywide residential electronics collection events in 2013. I would entertain an omnibus motion to forward both of these to the full board with a recommendation for approval, and I see one from Ms. Cowart and a second by Mr. Rosales. The floor is yours. Susan?
I'm here to respond to any questions you may have. As noted in this cover memo, we received 2 qualified responses and selected the one where we would not be charged for any funds based on pounds of TVs collected. So we are very fortunate to be working with Advanced Technology Recycling, who is highly regarded throughout the state.
Thank you, Ms. Monty. Mr. Richards.
Are there any changes in either the agreement or the lease agreement from previous years?
Since 2010, provisions have been added by the News Cassette, the host site facility, to charge the contractor in the event that the contractor would utilize the forklift on site or impose upon the on-site employee, which none of that has happened since 2011.
I saw there's a $1,500 per event fee to use that. Has that been in previous contracts?
When these collections started in 2010, that cost was taken care of by the governments, but that cost has since been absorbed now by the contractors with the passage of the state legislation.
Ms. Petrie.
Ms. Monty, if I'm remembering correctly, the last time you were before us to discuss this, you indicated there's a downward curve on the amount that is being collected during these recycling time. Am I remembering correctly or not?
Yes, during both in the frequency of these one-day collections and in the amounts collected, and that is due to the increasing amount of local options.
Okay. Where I'm going with my question is, since the agency that is providing the service now is covering this $1,500, do you anticipate a tipping point where it will no longer be economically feasible to be holding this, or is the amount earned really still significant?
Well, to answer your question, the intent of these collections is to publicize options available to residents that exist year-round.
Okay.
So that is a very important function that we try to do during these one-day collections.
So you're purposely downward curving?
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, is the distinction between these events and what you can do locally with some local recyclers, strictly that you can bring a TV to this and not be charged?
The televisions and the state legislation requires that residents be able to drop off televisions and a whole list of about 17, 18 different types of electronics for no charge at registered recycling collection points. So that is not the big advantage. The big advantage is to have the luxury of one of the community service workers' teams to unload these items from your vehicle. And that is a type of the collection, the aspect that is very much appreciated by people that attend these. so they don't have to cart out a huge projection TV, for instance, out of their vehicle to the point of collection, which you would have to do at a local, like at Habitat, you would have to unload your own items, or at Marco Steel, you would have to unload your own items.
Okay, thank you, that helps.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Monty or comments on these issues? Seeing none, all those in favor of sending these to the full board with a recommendation for approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We will do so. Moving on, and thank you for being here, Ms. Monty. Moving on to the county administrator's portion of the agenda. Ms. Busey has provided the corporate fund fiscal year 2013 budget report and budget change report tonight. I would entertain a motion to accept those and place them on file. So moved by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Carter. Any questions for Ms. Busey? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody no? Okay. Moving on, now we have some actual policy issues. The first relates to the general corporate fund hiring freeze. Ms. Busey had a memo in the packet which discusses this in some detail, and I'm going to turn the floor over to her to talk about it.
Basically, as outlined in the memo, we have, since we began experiencing the economic downturn in 2009, the board implemented a rather strict hiring freeze at that point in time to require all department heads and elected officials to come to you whenever a position became vacant for approval to, first of all, they were required to hold the position vacant for 3 months, and if they wanted to fill it, they had to come to you for approval to fill it. That was at a time when we were cutting budgets, and it was essential that we do as much as we could to save. Through that hiring freeze, I believe we achieved over the next 2 years a downsizing of our workforce of just about 9%. 43 positions out of about 450 were eliminated in between fiscal 2009 and 2009 and 2011. To a large degree because the elected officials understood that this was necessary and essential and that their budgets were going to be cut by you anyway. By 2011, when it was clear that we were more stable, elected officials are not required statutorily to adhere to a county board imposed hiring freeze. They're given autonomy with regard to the operation of their offices after the budget has been established. And after 2011, we have not been cutting budgets. We are operating within the budgets that we have. And in fact, for the last 2 years, we've operated the general corporate fund budget with revenue positive ending balances. So at this point, the only offices that the hiring freeze as it exists today really apply to are those of the appointed officials within the general corporate fund, which includes administrative services, the physical plant, planning and zoning, the supervisor of assessments, and IT. And it seems, and most of those departments are operating at minimal staffing levels. So a hiring freeze is a tool that can be extremely effective when it's needed and should be implemented and taken seriously at that time. At this time, I don't think there's any need to cut the operating budgets of the departments, and you don't end up cutting their budgets, even if you said you had to hold a position vacant for 3 months. But most of these offices are already at minimal staffing levels, and you have been approving the request for hiring freeze when they come to you, as they come to you. So my request is that we just completely eliminate the hiring freeze at this point in time. And if we ever see another situation where where the economy changes, it looks like there would be economic recession or downturns where we might have to start looking at cutting the budget again, I would certainly bring back to you the recommendation that we adopt a hiring freeze to deal with those issues at that time. This will have no impact on the budget. This has no impact on staffing levels. Departments of either elected officials or appointed officials can't add additional positions without your approval, effectively, because their budgets are set on the positions that you have approved, which are documented in the annual budget document. So my request is that you rescind the hiring freeze.
Having heard the county administrator, would someone like to make a motion to forward this request to the full board with a recommendation for approval? I see Mr. Richards and Mr. Hartke. Sorry, Jim. Was I wrong? Okay. Who would like to speak to this? Mr. Richards.
We are honoring this hiring freeze only in breach, as Ms. Busey said, so we might as well simplify things and get rid of it. It has done its job, and bravo to the administration and the administrators who have helped us get through the tough times the last 4 years. This is certainly a tool that we can use in the future. However, we don't really have a hiring freeze now. It's just on paper and complicating things right now anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Mr. Hartke.
And one other note, I mean, we have mentioned the ideas of recruiting. I know there's issues with recruiting tradesmen in the facilities area. Having the public aware that the county is not under a hiring freeze would probably increase the number of applications and qualified applicants we have for these positions. So I will certainly be in support of it.
Thank you, Mr. Hartke. Mr. Quisenberry.
Yeah, just a clarifying question. I think I've asked this before, but I'm going to ask it again. On our vacant position list, all of those have been vacant for more than 3 months, right? So they're not.
Not necessarily if they're in the office of an elected official.
Okay, but
And
the
not
administrative.
necessarily if you have already approved a waiver. You approved a waiver for the physical plant last month.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. McGuire.
No, I agree with the comments that have been made so far. It's very positive to see the county doing better, and I think the administration's done a fantastic job. And really, there's some positions that are currently open that could be filled. Is that true? To fill any more positions, the county board would have to vote on those. So it's not like the county board is going to go out of control and spend more than it has. So I think it's very positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Mr. Carter.
Yeah, that's kind of simple. I just want to know why the county board is not listed as elected official.
Listed where?
Yeah, where are you referring to, sir?
Huh?
Where are you talking about? I mean, we are certainly elected officials.
Well, that came up once before. I know that we wasn't listed, and it was right on the paper. We wasn't listed as elected officials.
Mr. Carter, I'm not sure where in the packet are you?
Huh?
Where in the packet are you talking about? Is there something in the packet or in the request that's wrong?
Well, I thought she just read off elected officials' salary on here.
I think I read off the appointed official offices that are
Elected officials.
appointed, not elected.
Appointee.
Ones that we appoint.
I'm sorry. I thought you said elected officials.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carter.
But that is a good question.
We are certainly elected officials, and I don't know anybody who says we aren't. Ms. Petrie.
Yes, I have a few more questions that this doesn't affect the budget. Right now, I'm not in support of this. I guess I'm really fiscally conservative because I'm not convinced that we're rolling forward and we're going to have great amounts of money. And I foresee when this hiring freeze gets rescinded that if I were a department head or I'd been low on staff, I certainly would be first in line to figure out how I was going to add to my office staff. And so where's this money coming from?
There is no money. No one can add position. This hiring freeze has nothing to do with adding additional positions. This has to do with filling a position that becomes vacant through attrition. And the hiring freeze required department heads to come to you to ask for approval to fill a vacant position. If you look in the budget document, you will see a full staffing budget for all county offices. Those number of positions are all that any county elected or appointed official has to fill. They can't fill. The state's attorney has a certain number of assistant state's attorneys. She can't hire one more than that because there isn't budget for it. She doesn't have the authority to do that.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Coward, thank you.
For Dave. So Dave, what you're saying that they have the money already in their budget if they want to fill these positions?
You've already approved the budget that includes the money for the positions that they have, yes.
So they can fill it and then come for general court to pay for it?
No. They can't, if they want to add a position, if any elected or appointed official of the general corporate fund wants to add a position, they need to come to you and ask for the additional position. Because we in salary administration will not authorize putting a position into the payroll system if it's one more position than what those offices have already had designated by the county board.
Mr. Langenheim.
Is everybody happy now?
We're happy now, Earl.
Okay, thank you. In short, what you're saying is that only the board can create positions, but once board positions are created, the constitutional department heads can fill them.
Right, and there's a bit of an anomaly there because the department heads, the elected officials can create positions. They have that autonomy, but they have to work within the budget that you give them. So they really can't add positions because the budget that you've given them is based on the positions that you have said they have authority for.
Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of forwarding this to the full board with a recommendation for approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, our next item is another interesting policy issue. This is a recommendation from the county administrator for a change in the county fiscal year. I'm going to ask Deb to discuss this briefly, and then I'm going to entertain a motion.
Well, I've provided in the memo to you an explanation of why this recommendation is being presented to you. Effectively, the treasurer and I have talked about this for a couple of years. The new county auditor and I have talked about this even before he was elected as auditor. Numerous of our departments, for example, the Regional Planning Commission, which operates on many different fiscal years, the federal fiscal year, the state fiscal year, municipal fiscal years, and the county fiscal year, I've reviewed this with them as well. The statutes give the county board the authority to determine when your fiscal year is. And changing to a calendar year fiscal year will provide, we believe, a number of benefits. One is that at least our quarters, our financial quarters, will align with the federal, state, and most municipal fiscal years. So from the perspective of, for example, the Regional Planning Commission, at least quarterly reporting lines up. Our employees will receive W-2s that actually match what we tell them their salary is, which never happens because their salary goes into effect on December 1st, and so it's always 11 months of one and 1 month of another. There are advantages in terms of the fiscal year cycle and tax cycle are on the same, they're all on a calendar year cycle as well. Those are some of the benefits. I want to make sure the board is very aware of one of the detriments, which is you will have to, for 2014, adopt a 13-month budget, which means you will adopt a deficit budget because there's no way there will be enough revenue in 13 months to cover 13 months of expenditure because of property tax, which is 27% of your general corporate fund revenue, and it comes in only in your second and third quarter. So that's going in, I would project that this budget will be at least about a $725,000 deficit budget because that's what 1 month value of property tax revenue is. We're pushing the ending of the fiscal year back a month, which also means that our stated or reported fund balance, which is the cash available at the end of the fiscal year, will also drop by about that same $725,000. This isn't a change in reality. The fiscal year, the fund balance report that you get is the fund balance as of the end of the fiscal year, November 30th. I can tell you that as of December 31st, 2012, it was lower than what the fund balance statement says in terms of real cash. But from a budgeting perspective, we always report fund balance, and so that would continue. The treasurer and I had anticipated coming to you to ask for an increase in the fund balance goal from 12.5% to 15%, because that 12.5% goal was originally intended when it was first adopted over a decade a year to ensure that there's enough money in the general corporate fund at the end of the fiscal year to carry us through until property taxes come in without any loans for cash flow purposes. The fund balance goal, so we were going to recommend taking it to 15%. But if we end the fiscal year December 31st, keeping the fund balance goal at 12.5% should work. We're 1 month closer to when property taxes will come in. And in all likelihood, although it may take us a couple years to reach that fund balance goal, in all likelihood, once we do, we will no longer need a loan from the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund every year for general corporate to cover cash flow until May or June when property tax comes in. So that's probably more than you wanted to know, but those are the reasons for this recommendation before you this evening.
Having heard comments from the county administrator, would someone make a motion to send this to the full board with a recommendation for approval? I think Ms. Michaels and Mr. Mitchell. I would also, I guess since this is an issue of significant import, I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules to allow the treasurer and the auditor, who are both here, to weigh in on this as well.
Point of order, I don't know that we need a suspension of
We
rules to
talked about that. I think it is. Let's do it anyway. Mr. Esri and Mr. Quisberg will put you down as a second, since you object to it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. I don't know if you guys want to come up, or we'd certainly like to hear your statement on it. And while we're doing that, Ms. Schwartz.
Well, I certainly strongly support that, but I do have two questions. One is extending from 30 to 60 days going to shrink our purchases not following purchasing policy because they finally won't be crossing?
Yeah,
okay.
this list would not be here tonight primarily
Because
if we have 60 days.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, do we have, would it any way possibly, the fund balance being less than what our goal is it in any way possibly going to affect our bond ratings?
I don't think so, because bonding agencies are usually very concerned that you be at least at 10% or above.
So it doesn't matter.
And this explanation is something they would take into consideration, so I think it's okay.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. That's a great question, because it was something that came up during our initial discussions about this. Does any, if no one else has comments for the county administrator, you guys want to fight over who gets to speak first?
Age before beauty?
Thank you. I'll let that all go. You know, it doesn't affect my office really as much as it would affect my younger cohort here. But one of the things that I have done, and Deb and I have talked about this for at least 2 years, maybe more than that. I was fortunate in 2011 to be the president of the Illinois County Treasurers Association, so I asked all treasurers, all 102, if they've gone through this change, and if they have gone through this change, what the effect was. Surprisingly, not that very many have done this, but those that have done it all were very enthusiastic about the change. I thought it was a great thing. A couple of points about the fund balance. 12.5% was set by my predecessor, Roger Little. I've been treasurer 15 years. He was 16 years before that, so it's quite a long time. The change to 15% is still a goal. It doesn't mean we're going to get there anytime soon, but it's a goal that I think if we can achieve at some point, it would put an additional $1.5 million on that bottom line at the end of the year, the carryover. And I think that would make a difference about whether we take a loan from public safety at the end of the year. I also like the aspect of it aligning with the tax cycle. Tax cycle's January 1. This would also do that. So from my perspective, it's a win-win. I haven't spoken to anybody that's a treasurer, and I speak to a lot of them, that thought there were anything to be concerned about. I think this is overdue, and I think that it's a good thing. Can I help you with this?
Please. I also spoke to my counterparts in the Auditors Association in two counties, McLean and Peoria, who also have elected auditors. They're in the same situation, and they have had no problem with this. They changed it over the last few years. In my office, as it affects how we operate, I talk to my staff, and it's all positives from them. the folks that have to do various reports. This helps line things up. It eliminates some duplication of work, and it just seems to be a good thing all around. So we're very much in support of it.
Thank you. Mr. Kurtz.
I think if I was an employee, I would be very positive about this so I can get my taxes done properly and not be confused about how much I got paid last year and how much I have to worry about it going into the following year. So I think it's a positive for all our employees, and they would be very happy with the
Well, not only that, in several different elected official offices and departments, there are account clerks that are unable to do a lot of things at the end of the year when there's several holidays and just things are coming up, and they are very diligent and very committed to their jobs, but this will open it up for them. So it's a morale booster as well.
Well, I'm curious, since this is being presented as the greatest thing since white sliced bread, why it hasn't been going through the state and other counties like a wildfire.
Vision.
Yeah, it's all happening because I'm here now.
But that doesn't account for the other counties.
I had a couple of questions if nobody else does. John, with regard to audit timing, one of the issues that we first talked when we first started kicking this around was that this may put more pressure on the external auditor in terms of the time available between the closeout and the audit. Do you think that's a issue?
No, we actually have discussed it with the outside auditors from Clifton, Larson, Allen, and they saw no problem with it. It's just when they set up their schedule, they'll adjust because of this. So, no, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, good. And I guess my overriding comment, which I guess I've never gotten a good answer to, and goes to Ms. Petrie's comment, we'd probably need a Ouija board to answer this question, but why has it always been December to December? Does anybody know?
And why the reluctance to change it? I think the statutes sets it out, December through
Microphone.
I think that's set out in the statutes, but the statutes also give the county board the authority to change the fiscal year. I think that's...
So that the default in the statute is December to December, which is why most counties do that. Thank you. Mr. Kurtz?
Yeah, I too had a discussion one-on-one with the outside auditor before she started her work, and we discussed this, and they felt there was no problem as well. So I concur with Ms. Busey on this, and I would hope that the board would recommend this to the full board in approval.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, to Patsy's point, I believe one of the reasons that it hasn't changed more in the 102 counties is that there aren't that many auditors in the state of Illinois. There's maybe 17 county auditors. And if anybody knows anything about county government, it's slow to change. And there's nobody championing this kind of change. So not everybody has an administrator, which is obvious, and certainly not most of them don't have county auditors. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Well, I was just going to mention that it had been mentioned to me before because the townships are on a kind of a screwed up calendar too, but we were told that was partly due because accounting firms like that, it spreads their workload out because the end of the year is their heavy time.
Thank you. Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes, I worked for a company that had a February 1st fiscal year beginning, and they decided to move it to January 1st for the obvious reasons that we're considering it. But when you talked about why was it that way, they could not explain that very well because it had always been that way. And frequently I would suggest to support what our treasurer has said, inertia is a big thing. So if you're not having people, maybe new people occasionally to ask questions about why we do it this way. I personally am really excited about the fact that we're adjusting to line things up a little bit better. We're going to adjust policy so that all of these exceptions that we complain about now follow our policy, and we know that they're okay. We've known it all along, but we get riled up about the fact that we see so many of them. This is going to take care of that, so I'm going to be supportive.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of forwarding this request to the full board with a recommendation of approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. Thank you guys for sticking around. It was useful feedback. Our final item for the county administrator is a recommendation for a market adjustment under the skilled trades classifications. Again, I'll let Deb give an introduction to this, and then I'll entertain a motion.
We have experienced difficulty filling our skilled trades vacancies over the last year. We've had one position basically constantly vacant, and you see in the report that in the last year we've had 3 different hires, all of whom have left to be paid more money elsewhere to do the same work. Under our salary administration system, this is called a need for a market adjustment to a particular salary based on the local market. The recommendation is that we upgrade the salary range for the skilled trades position 1 grade above where it typically falls within our salary administration system, which would be to assign this position at grade range I instead of grade range H, where it is currently classified. We're hopeful that this will give us enough additional leverage or flexibility to be able to recruit and retain a qualified individual for the skilled trades position. This is an AFSCME, General Bargaining Unit position, so if the board does approve this, it will also still require that we negotiate with AFSCME to work out this agreement in the change to the salary scales. If this is approved, there are 2 current incumbents in the skilled trades position, and both of those positions, based on both county personnel policy and AFSCME bargaining contract, would be considered to have been upgraded, and we would need to upgrade the salary of those 2 individuals. The one who's been here the shortest amount of time would simply be moving to the new salary range minimum. The skilled trades individual who's been with the county for 20 years would receive a 10% increase, or positioned in the same place in the salary range of the range that he's currently in, but in this case a 10% increase is less, so that's what he would receive. I wanted you to be aware of that as you look at this request recommendation. Basically then what we're asking for is that just as if we have done for engineers and as we have done for IT positions, that the skilled trades position receive a market adjustment to be compensated 1 grade above where it falls in the salaries classification system.
Thank you, Deb. Would someone like to move this forward to the full board with a recommendation for approval?
So moved.
Mr. Quisenberry, and I see a second from Mr. James. Is there discussion? Mr. Quisenberry.
Yeah, this is more of a question, just to get some more information. I'm just curious, these particular skilled trades, why are they represented by AFSCME as opposed to the individual unions that would be associated with those functions?
Well, because there are employees, and AFSCME got these positions into their bargaining unit when they organized the county. Thank you.
Mr. James.
I noticed, Deb, in there that each one that left was due to they got a better paying job somewhere else, but is there ever an exit interview given to the person leaving? Because I know in the past when I worked for the Housing Authority, we heard that sometimes, but when we would do exit interviews, it was either working hours, working conditions, or other factors that also came into play, because not everybody that I've ever come in contact with is really motivated by a higher salary. Not everybody. There are quite a few, and I could look around this table and see some, but working conditions I found with some of the folks I worked with had a lot to do with reasons they quit, because if they were stuck in, say, the painting department all the time, they just got tired of it. There was no movement around, and they just were tired of always doing that. And I don't care if we would have paid them $25 an hour at that point. They just weren't happy. So it was something to talk. So do we talk to these employees as they leave or no?
We attempt to schedule exit interviews, but I know that at least 2 of these 3 basically came to work, said, here are my keys, I got a better offer, I'm starting today, goodbye. And so, no, we did not get exit interviews with those 2. I don't know about the first one.
Okay,
But given the fact that we do have a skilled trades worker in one of these positions who's been with the county for 20 years, who's a very good employee, I'm not aware that that's an issue, but we do attempt to schedule exit interviews with employees as they're leaving the employment of the county.
And
I
I'm
haven't
not saying
heard
it
that.
would be an issue,
Yeah.
I'm just asking. And then my follow-up would be that I know for a fact that construction is down in a lot of areas. People are looking for work. I agree that a good salary is a nice thing, but we also have the benefit package that a lot of private companies or construction companies don't offer their help. And I just often wonder, are we not reaching out enough or getting the word out that there might be openings? Because I know I get inquiries once in a while from folks, and I'll tell them to hit the website and get an application. I understand the reason for the increase. I think it'll be nice, and it'll probably attract some other folks. But I always don't like to see us just raising salaries thinking that we're going to get a better response. I think sometimes we have a lot of other things to offer than just boosting up pay all the time.
And I did look at the cost of benefits to the county in part of this analysis, and even at the new pay range, you would have to be at the maximum salary before the salary plus benefits would even begin to reach what the prevailing wage for these positions that we're trying to recruit are in Champaign County. So I did look at that. We always do consider the fact that we do have a good benefits package. In terms of reaching out, we're reaching out as much as we know how. We're not advertising in other areas because obviously these aren't the kind of jobs that people would move here for. But we have a pretty robust application process that's on the website now, and we reach out to all the local entities. We post our jobs in about 7 or 8 different areas locally. So I believe we're doing outreach, but always open to suggestions if you have any.
Thanks, Devin. Just to clarify, the prevailing wage, if I remember correctly, is what contractors who receive federal money are required to pay?
No, contractors who you hire are required to pay. That's Champaign County's prevailing wage.
Oh, Champaign County's prevailing wage,
Yeah.
not the federal prevailing wage.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Petrie.
Yes, note this, I'm agreeing with Mr. James' concerns here. I'm sorry that there weren't exit interviews because I have his concern that they may go out and get more money in the hand, but in actual fact not be getting more money because of benefits, health care, the whole 9 yards. So I understand why some things need to be raised, but all we're seeing again is a figure of what it will cost the physical plant, but then we have to add into that what it's going to cost in benefits, which is usually about another 37%, and that's not represented here. And so I still have some hesitancies about pursuing this.
The increase only causes an increase in Social Security and IMRF, which would be a total of about 11%. Well, no, it would be a total of 17% of the increase.
Okay, 17. All right, thank you.
Mr. Harkey?
No, my point was just that since we've tentatively raised the hiring freeze, that might help some of these problems with people applying for jobs, but that was all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell.
A couple thoughts. We don't exist in a vacuum, and I'm always concerned about internal equity within and throughout the county system. Will this impact ripple through the system and ask, other employees will be asking for adjustments as well? And the other thought while I'm at it is I've thought for some time that perhaps we may need to look at these job descriptions and rewrite them so that we can put lower qualified people in there, get those folks trained, bring them on, and use the difference in money to maybe hire private individuals as we need them, like a plumber or that sort of thing.
In answer to your first question, a market adjustment is only recommended when it's indicated that there's a need for it. We, at the same time, have been advertising for clerical positions and receive as many as 200 applications and have no trouble filling those positions. So even if some of those individuals came and said, we think our pay should be increased, my response, our response, I assume the board's response would be, we're at market value for those jobs and there's no need for us to increase those salary ranges. To your second question, we have 3 levels of employment in the physical plant. There's the entry-level maintenance worker, a senior maintenance worker, and skilled trades. And at this point in time, sometimes it works to move up through those positions. We only have 3 skilled trades positions. At this time, we do not have an employee who's qualified to do what is required of the skilled trades jobs. And we absolutely need those jobs to maintain the HVAC systems and the complex building systems and the 11 buildings that we maintain on a daily basis.
So we should refer some of these applicants for clerical positions to the union halls.
Yeah.
Tell them to become plumbers and pipe fitters. Mr. Carter?
I'm looking on page 98, and I'm looking at the electrician, carpenters, and plumbers, pipe fitters. Is that what you, the rate that you want to give?
No, not at all, but that is what Champaign County has to pay if it hires an electrician or a pipe fitter.
That's what you're paying now?
That's what we have to pay if we hire someone from outside to do that work, because that is the prevailing wage, and according to your prevailing wage ordinance, that is what a contractor would have to pay his employee to do that type of work for Champaign County. What I'm proposing is on page 99, a range with a minimum of $20.38 per hour and a maximum of $30.57 per hour. And we would typically be hiring at the minimum because, again, these are bargaining unit positions, and that's where we normally hire.
Well, I don't see anything wrong with these. This is about right. If you go into school, you have to go to school for 4 years to get all these positions here. You have to go to class. And you have to pass the exam. So I don't see anything wrong with it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I guess I just had one point I'd like to make. I'm going to support this. I think something we need to take into consideration is that turnover is expensive. And, I mean, these guys are not only just an electrician or plumber off the street. These guys have to learn the specifics and the quirks of the county's facilities. We have a lot of facilities, we have a lot of mechanicals, we have a lot of systems. And, you know, if we end up paying these guys a couple bucks an hour, and it gets them to stick around, I think that's a significantly better long-term investment than, you know, going through several people a year and investing our time training them up. So I will support this. If there are no additional comments or questions, would all those in favor please say aye? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now we move to the addendum. And saying that I have to find the addendum. This is an approval, this is a request from the county clerk to apply for a grant from the Illinois State Board of Elections to help assist in connecting our voter registration system to the state system. Motion by Mr. Esri, second by Ms. Cowart. Is there any discussion on this issue? Would anybody like to hear from Mr. Halton? Why don't you talk to us anyway? It sounds like you're maybe you want to quit while you're ahead. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Brief chair's report. Just 2 comments. One, I received a question from a board member in the last during the last board term. The board had a couple of closed sessions at which we discussed potential settlements of cases against the nursing home. I don't want to give any details because this is an open session, other than I do want to tell the board that any outstanding cases have been settled within the authority that was given by the board. So at this point, we have no outstanding lawsuits against the nursing home. My other comment was I wanted to thank Diane, who snuck out of the room before she got to be thanked. John Farney and Barbara Ramsey from the auditor's office, Deb and Al, and we met with Scott Gima yesterday and sort of all ganged up on him with regard to some concerns that were raised about potential overpayment of late fees, or I should say payment of late fees that we wouldn't have had to pay if we'd been more on top of our payables. He acknowledged the problem. We talked about some specific issues related to that. I think it was a good meeting, and I wanted to thank the auditor and thank everybody who attended for helping get this going. I think we identified a couple of things ranging from, you know, double coverage needs in the nursing homes office, in the nursing homes financial office, to things like providing payables to the auditor in smaller chunks as opposed to just a big stack at the end of the month. Things that we can look at that will both help the auditor get a better look at what's going on over there and make sure that things operate more efficiently. So I just wanted to thank Diane for helping set that meeting up. Let's talk about our nursing home meeting. No problem. So that's it for the chair's report. We have a similar to what we did under policy. We have a memo from the state's attorney regarding semi-annual review of closed session minutes. Deb, what are they telling us to do?
The recommendation is that there are none to be opened at this time, and they should be maintained as closed.
Thank you. May I have a motion to do that? Moved by Mr. Quisenberry, second by Mr. Mitchell. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We will keep those closed. Thank you. Designation of items for consent, A2 and 3, D1 and 2, E1, F1 and 2, and G4. That concludes finance.
Okay, thank you, Chris. In abeyance to Ms. Astrid, with her outing at the restaurant, if she wishes to stay at her chair for her fatigue, please do. Just turn on your microphone and we'll go from there, Astrid.
First, for Deb, the monthly reports, I'd like to say, you know, we should, you know, pass them for review. I could not find Head Starts. I looked all over RPC and the county, and I found an 87-page document full of tables and things. I'm sure that's not a monthly report.
I wouldn't think so. I'll check that.
Okay. So does anyone want for reports 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6? Does someone?
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Concerning Head Start, we've had some major concerns. The sequester has hit us. It's going to hit Head Start pretty hard. I've sat down with Cameron, Deb. We've been discussing this on how we can.
All the more reason for them to make monthly reports.
Yes, right, absolutely. Well, this is in the works right now.
We're really looking to find out how they were going to hit, and there's
nothing. Immediately was 5% on the sequester. It could be up to 10%. We're still getting information from the federal government on and the state on how this is going to pass through to us. But we're making provisions right now. We will not do any cutting through the end of May, through the school year. We're going to keep all the children in Head Start and early Head Start. But it's going to come to the point where next year in September, we may have to cut a minimum of 30 children to a maximum of 60 children off the Head Start because of the sequester problem. It also means dropping for every 20 children, a teacher and an assistant. So you can see that would be 6 jobs that we would lose. We're working very hard to try and we cannot put more than 20 children into a classroom by state statute. So we're under the gun when it comes to the sequester at this point. So I just wanted to inform you that it's a moving target right now. We're not sure on all of the details, but Cameron Moore is working very diligently to see where we can save some of these children to continue on in Head Start. It's out of our control, as most things are, and it looks like $250,000 to hit. And Diane, would you like to comment on that as well?
Well, I was talking to Kathleen, and Kathleen is the director of Head Start and Early Head Start, and of course she reports to all of the funds are funneled through RPC for all their grant money and stuff. And like Al said, it was 5 to 10% is what they've been told to gear for the next year. You know, the things that are done this year are done. But there also are still a lot of openings in the teacher positions too. And, you know, there's no, part of this is they have to be qualified now. They have to have a certain certification by October. And if they don't have this certain certification and at least a minimal of an associate's in early childhood, not just education, but early childhood with this certification, then they will no longer be able to be a teacher in that program. So they've been working very diligently, just like the trades, you know, to try to find somebody or get somebody trained for that. So where they can cut back on some things, you know, you just can't have 25 or 30 little kids in a school environment. You can certainly have them in a playground environment or, you know, overall subjects like that, but certainly not when they're trying to do the one-on-one with their teaching of their ABCs and their colors and things like that. So they are going to be hit pretty hard. And there is a office in Urbana, in Champaign, one in Rantoul, and one in Savoy. And at this time, one of the things that they've been doing is the Savoy office actually closes in the summer. So those kids do come over to Champaign, Urbana, so that, you know, they've got that done. They've also had the foresight to work with our highway department and now have their buses and things coming to the county highway department to have maintenance done on them. So that saved them some money too. And yet the highway department does charge for it. So don't think the highway's doing it for nothing, because they do charge for it. So I think in a way they've tried to minimize some of their expenses. But once again, you have no idea until it all comes down or when we receive monies for things, because they are grant based.
Well, I guess I was looking in the wrong place for a Head Start report. This was much better.
Sorry.
Yes. Pardon? It is there? Okay, maybe just there. Pardon?
Can we be recognized to speak, please?
Yeah.
I was just going to point out what Patsy was saying unrecognized, and that is that it is, that 87-page report is the report, and it is accessible.
I'll find the place for it.
Yeah, it's accessible from the departmental reports like every other one, and it takes you to the RPC, and you have to choose the month associated with the one you want. But it's there, so I don't know why we would omit accepting it.
Lloyd?
I have just two questions here. Well, one is, I'll be talking with Senator Dick Durbin's office, and I think we have a little time. They're trying to get this thing settled, so you won't have to do that. It's a shame. It's really a shame. It should be happening, but it is. But anyway, I'm staying in touch with his office and hoping they can get this question settled so we won't have to hurt our kids. This is pitiful. And the next thing is number 6. Let me get my glasses back. Oh, yeah. The Veterans Assistance Commission.
Yep.
What are we doing? I haven't got any, you know.
Ralph is heading that, but basically the heads of all the veterans associations in the county.
Well, that was the chair.
Not only are we giving them some money, but it's a way for them to organize all their giving so people can't go from one to another. So they're really organizing all of the veteran group giving along with what we have.
No, I'm not saying that. As this board, that used to be the chair and I used to be the vice chair, but I haven't had any kind of communication lately. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically what happened there is that group, we were helping them get established and getting to the county board to rule on. That was done, and now Ralph is the liaison. He's no longer a chair of a committee. So there's no more committees to meet on that, Lloyd, so you should have got that memo, but you apparently didn't, but I'll get you a copy of it.
So they didn't opt us out?
They opt you out.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Can I I am attending their meetings. They're up and running. There are reports being filed. They have a website. They're functioning. Their biggest problem, as I see it, is that not all of the veterans organizations in the county, which are part of their group, are participating. So some of the smaller posts and whatnot that are out in the smaller towns just aren't interested enough, and they don't have enough business to come in and do anything with it. But they are functioning, but they do have a way to go. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Actually, Ralph, I apologize. I do have a quick question. On the Veterans Assistance Commission report, they provided a rent of $3,847. But, and this is probably me not being more knowledgeable, but I thought we gave them rent here, or the county provided a place for them to operate. Is that not true?
That's a rent subsidy that goes to veterans in need.
Okay, so we basically.
They are not paying rent to the county.
Okay.
They're a general corporate fund department.
So when they say rent, it's not their rent, it's rent they're providing others.
Correct.
In this report. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to keep on top of it, but they're sort of like if you ever used to play, when a kid used to play with liquid mercury, you know what it's like.
Can we ask if the motion could be amended to include Head Start as well?
I'd move that amendment.
Second.
All in favor, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Chair's report. Oh, we didn't. All in favor of filing, accepting these monthly reports and filing them for whatever? Place on file. All right.
We have a circular file for them.
All in favor? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? And as for Chair's report, the task force, those of you who have been coming to the task force meetings know they're very productive. I hope more of you will come. It should be a very good report when we're done. Any questions? Are we done? No. Oh, yes, the semi-annual.
Yes. Pursuant to the statutory requirement to conduct a semi-annual review of all closed meeting minutes, I move that the closed meeting minutes of the Justice and Social Services Committee be maintained as closed to protect the public interest or the privacy of individuals, with the exception of the minutes from January 5, 1990, January 2, 1990, January 30, 1991, February 20, 1991, November 20, 1991, December 3, 1991, October 1, 1992, October 9, 1992, January 28, 1994, which may now be determined as open session minutes. Who's the second?
Second. We have a second.
Mr. Esri? Okay. Ms. Petrie?
Mr. Quisenberry, I was trying to keep up with you. Number one, did you read that as February 2 or February 20?
February 20,
Okay,
1991.
thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. That's it. We have motion to adjourn.
We're free to go. Vote with your feet.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Schroeder.
Yeah.
John's next time. Why a second? For the record. For the record.